Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. Now in our 5th season, looking into the massively exciting happenings of Ipswich Town Football Club. My name is Benjamin Bloom and you are tuned into the flagship show. You're not tuned into the flagship show, you're tuned into the midweek show, available each and every midweek on video or audio. So for a sometimes irreverent but always informative hour or more of football conversation. Make your Monday a Blue Monday. I've just watched cricket on Joe's phone through Skype. More ridiculously, because Joe cared about it. He was watching the reflection of his screen. Joe, what just happened?
England lost by 1 run in a T20 international against South Africa, when we should have really won from where we were at the last over.
Joe Fairs is here. Craig is here. You enjoyed the cricket as well, didn't you? Well,
yes. As much. I enjoyed the cricket more than I enjoyed the football.
There we go. Seb, do you give any Fs about the cricket?
Not in the slightest. I think that's the most cricket I've ever seen.
In one sitting. They did take a fair while. And as you can see, we have the quad pod here. We put the shout out. We had Craig in attendance at Wimbledon last night, and we had 2 I follow perverts, as we call them in the WhatsApp group, voyeuristically watching in from VPNs redirected all over the
second half felt like a Clockwork Orange, where I had to be like forced down to my chair with my eyes pinned open to stay and watch the second half.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's a little taster of what you're in for Joe tonight. So look, we're going to talk some Wimbledon. Don't worry, we'll keep it light because obviously Ipswich Town Twitter went into its 500th meltdown of about the last 6 months, I reckon, last night. But first of all, let's do a quick little bit of news. Paul Lambert quoted as saying that he made an approach for Connor Wickham, Premier League striker Connor Wickham, once of Ipswich, who has ended up at Sheffield Wednesday replacing Stephen Fletcher, basically. Seb, talk to me about these comments. He said he was way out of the price range, and he's basically admitted trying to get a striker, but this one seemed to be a bit fanciful anyway, didn't it? What's your view on this, on Wickham specifically, and the fact that they were in the market for a striker?
Well, with regards to Wickham, obviously he'd have been phenomenal at this level, but there was never any chance at all of him coming to join us. I was amazed, I think we all were, with the comments after the game when he said he tried to get in. We all know he must be on north of, 30, 40, 50 grand a week at Palace. Palace said he can go out on loan, but I don't think they'd send him to League One at all. They want him in the Championship. So when I heard that name, I guess that just kind of sums up our recruitment at the minute. Fanciful targets that just pluck names out of the sky, and it was never going to happen. Getting a striker in would have seemed fairly sensible to me, especially one in the mould of Wickham, a big target man to hold the ball up and bring others into play. But I was a bit concerned with the Norwood comments as well, that he might be letting Norwood's confidence go a little bit with those comments.
Joe, you love Idris El Mazouni, not quite as much as you love Armando Dobra, and he was on the goal-scoring sheets last night for Cambridge. I wanted to say at Paul Hurst Scunthorpe, but he's not. You can't find him anymore, sadly. Talk to me about El Mazouni and a good start to the loan.
Yeah, he's playing as a 10, so he scored a goal from that position there. And I only watched the 2-minute highlights from Sky, but he seemed to be at the heart of most of Cambridge's attacks. He sort of got away, put a good cross in for one that was saved. For the second goal, it was him winning the ball back, and he scored a good free kick as well for the first goal. And we're sort of watching those highlights after watching last night's game when there was this huge gap between midfield and forward. You sort of think, well, could he have done any worse than what we've got here? But it's good to see him doing well in league football, but it's also frustrating.
The loan system working beautifully, but not for Simon Grayson, Craig. This just broke earlier today. So fellow long in the tooth jobbed out manager for many years, Simon Grayson, Craig, out of Blackpool, 1 win in 12, and I seem to remember them signing about 10 players in the window. Ipswich go there in 3 games' time, all ready for someone new to come in.
Bounce.
The old new manager bounce, but 1 win in 12, similar ilk and Blackpool acting. Can you draw any parallels with Mr. Lambert and Mr. Grayson?
Yeah, well, they've unbelievable. They've got a worse record than us, haven't they? As you say, 1 win in 10 or 12, whatever it was. And again, as you say, they did get a fair few players in, including obviously Grant Ward, who's been sitting on their bench for a little bit. But I don't know who they've got in the running to be replaced. To be a replacement, might be just one of the normal run-of-the-mill names, I'd have thought. Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, but as you say again, of all the teams that we could be playing in a couple of weeks' time, we're end of the month, it might take them a week or so. Give a caretaker a couple of matches, and then they'll have a brand new shiny manager in for our visit. At the end of the month.
I wonder if Gary Bowyer will go back there. He's just been sacked at Bradford, hasn't he? Did a good job there previously.
It's a wholly more sensible suggestion than I made, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Ian Holloway went to Grimsby, didn't he? He might have fancied it again. Mm-hmm. Now the Oysters aren't around.
He'll do anything, won't he? Jesus, Holloway. Right, shall we go off to Wimbledon? We've procrastinated and prevaricated long enough. Ipswich make their first away trip to AFC Wimbledon in, what's the stadium called? Is it the Cherry Red Records Stadium still?
Yeah.
And they go there off the back of 3 straight defeats against now first place Rotherham, second place Peterborough, and 5th place Sunderland. Seb, prior to that, it had been a really, really good run of 10 points in 4, and the only drop points in that ridiculous windy and wet Oxford game. Talk to me about this binary form over this last sort of 7 games or so, and the mood going in.
Well, after the first half on Saturday, I thought if they play like that and with the right maybe personnel changes, they'll have enough about them to see Wimbledon off. But it's looking like that pickup of form against Accrington, Lincoln, I guess the draw against Wickham, looks like it was the blip. I think somebody put that on Twitter the other day saying that looks like the blip in form. It's just been was it you, Craig? Yeah, great comment. It's just been a slow decline since October. I thought they would win last night, but I guess as we're about to find out, it didn't quite go to plan.
Craig, you were there. Can you just give us a little description of this wonderful little shed of a ground? I sound like a really snobby Ipswich fan here, don't I? Because it's quite a nice area, Wimbledon.
Yeah, it was. It's got one on Oxford, isn't it? It's actually got a stand behind on every side of the pitch. I suppose it's 25%.
Has it got a bad retail park straight outside though?
Not that I saw. I walked briskly from Norbiton Station straight into the away end. So it was a lot of porter cabins outside. The toilets were demountables, porter cabins, that sort of thing. You sort of enter into the corner of the ground where the away fans is, and the away fans are situated where the left back is, basically, where the linesman, the linesman's within a yard of the away fans running up and down that touch line, basically. What we found wasn't much of a problem for myself. I'm 6'4", so it wasn't an issue for me. And Mikey's, I think, even outdoes me. He's about 6'5", but there's no gradient on the terrace. So, very, very limited gradient on terrace. So I had a lady standing next to me, and she must have been 5'6", and she could not have seen 90% of that match. Probably beneficial from her respect, maybe, but it was really, really poor for people who couldn't, who weren't there early enough to get a decent spot. You wouldn't be able to see too much. But no. Yeah, we were right close to the pitch. We were really, really close to the dugouts. They were on our side of the pitch as well. So yeah, but it was non-league. Yeah, it was a non-league setup. Similar sort of to locally. I don't know many Suffolk grounds, but Wivenhoe Town sort of standard of ground, maybe a little bit plusher, but not quite like Saturday, shall we say?
No, I had a few friends that went, and they got there a bit late, and they said for the first half they were just literally out the back of the stand, effectively still in the car park. You couldn't see anything. They were just at the gate. Like, I think there was a few fans getting pretty irate with the stewards, but which they just said they couldn't be bothered to do that. They just went and got some food, but you literally couldn't see anything. You were just standing at the back of a gaggle of people queuing to still get in as the game was going on.
GB had the best view, didn't he? He tweeted a picture from the men's toilets. He was looking out the window of the men's toilets and got a very half decent view.
GB's normally looking in the window of the men's toilets, isn't he? Oh, why have I said that? You know, halfway through a sentence when you're already regretting it. Quick reminder of the return game back in August. This was Caden Jackson's late winner coming back, and this was the kickstart, gentlemen, for a run of 9 wins and a draw in 10 games back in August. I'll say that again: 9 wins and a draw in 10 games. Incredible. Right, there's a lot to pick apart in this team. It was Holy, Wilson, Chambers, Wolfenden are the centre halves. Earl and Danasian are the wing backs, so Earl gets his first start. It's a midfield 3 without a number 10. Some would argue we've played many times this season without a number 10. Skews holding with Downs and Hughes. Norwood and Jackson up top. Seb, first of all, Holy stays in. Earl over Kenlock at wing back. That's the only controversy in the back 5. Your views on that?
Well, Earl looked all right against Sunderland. Kenlock, he didn't have the greatest game. He sort of seemed to tire as the game went on, so it did make sense for Earl to come in. I think I said on Sunday's pod, I thought Earl would come in at the left centre-back position, but Lambert obviously thought he could do a job out on the wing. He's a big guy, and I'm not entirely sure he's suited to that role, that getting up and down for 90 minutes. I think Kenlock would have been the better bet on the night.
Joe, we've joked about. I just joked about lack of number 10, but given I think it was Dave said on the pod before, look, in this division, don't try and be too clever. You know, we're not gonna, unless it's basically a kind of 3 up front in the way that Peterborough do it. There isn't a lot of point playing a number 10, or there certainly doesn't seem to. So on the surface of it, was this actually a sensible move? You know, sticking another centre midfielder and you have a holder, and presumably the idea is then that frees up the other 2 central midfielders and they can get forward. There's some sense to it, give or take the personnel. What's your view on a number 6 and 2 number 8s as opposed to having a number 10 in there?
Well, as soon as I saw the team, I was worried that after the way Wimbledon had played when we played them at Portman Road, it was just sit back and not even really trying to hit us on the break. They didn't even do that. They just sat back, and I saw the team and I saw the 3 centre-backs. I saw Danasian as a wing-back who doesn't really go forward. Earl I hadn't seen, so I sort of gave him the benefit of the doubt, but within about 5 minutes, it was clear he isn't a player that can run forward with the ball and dribble the ball. Scoose sitting there. So you've got 6 defensive players and out-and-out defensive players playing. Hughes and Downs are the only ones trying to push on, but the gap was just so big between them, and Wimbledon just sat back. Like I say, Mick Mills on the commentary, and probably most people watching, within, maybe not those in the stadium, we couldn't really see much, but within about 5 minutes, it was obvious that we did not need that setup we did, and we just needed to try and sort of maybe push Scouse on to sit with Downs and push Hughes on, even push Downs on, but we needed to do something else than what we were doing, and it was just... That first half was one of the worst sort of games of football I've seen. It was like a training game. There's no intensity, no one trying to break. I think the only time we broke the lines in the whole half was when we had passed the ball around quite well in an area, but Hughes actually gives the ball away, but it deflects off one of their players, and he then picks up the rebound. And that was the only time we broke the lines in the whole half. And when you see the personnel, I don't know. It's one of those ones where you see the team and you think, oh shit, I hope it don't go like this. And within 5 minutes, it's like, oh, this is how it is going.
You see the team and you think the worst case scenario of that team is this happening, and yeah, maybe our thoughts. So look, Craig, we'll get into the first half. Joe's already kicked us off there. The only other thing of note there, Norwood and Jackson together up front again. Is that sensible when you don't have a number 10, having the bustler and the pacey guy running in behind?
Yes, I suppose it would have been, but it didn't. They still need support, don't they? They still need support from the midfield, and they just simply didn't get it. As Joe said, the issue we had was Skews was sitting deep, but Hughes wasn't really playing that far ahead of him. He was pretty much playing alongside him. And as Joe says about practice matches, it reminded me of one of the EFL Cup games, that it was just played at such a low, from our perspective, it was played at such a low pace. Hughes was getting the ball and just knocking it about, but there was no urgency, there was no impetus. I think I sent a message to the WhatsApp in the first half saying we need to do things just a hell of a lot quicker. And how many times have we said that over the course of the season? There's no urgency. Everyone's taking far too many touches with the ball, just far too ponderous. No courage. It was just flat midfield three and a very flat performance.
Seb, is there any chance that Lambert's seen a very leaky game against Peterborough and said, we kept loads of clean sheets earlier in the season, I'm going to stop this losing run by tightening it up and work from that? Or am I giving him too much credit?
I think you're giving him too much credit. I mean, it's okay to play a sort of a holding midfielder against the likes of Sunderland and probably Peterborough when, it's going to be a tough game. We should have gone there last night and we should have won that game to set ourselves up for the rest of the season. So, like Joe, as soon as I saw the lineup, it reminded me there was a game under Mick where I think we had Scouse, Douglas and Heim in central midfield, and you knew how that was going to go. And last night was exactly the same. He should have played a more progressive player to help link with the strikers, and I think he's lost the plot a bit with the lineup, to be honest with you.
Joe, is there not an argument that it just strikes me that all of these players did exactly what was in their character, i.e. it's not Down's job to get forward, Skews never gets forward, and I suppose Hughes was a little bit under Mick. You would think one of them at least would have, or anyone on the pitch would have revelled in the chance, right, there's a holder in there, even a centre-half or a wing-back. Why no one stepping up to want to be the guy to carry the team forward?
I think Hughes and Downs were trying to, but they're naturally sort of box-to-box midfielders. I don't know, players are comfortable either in front of the ball or behind the ball, and we had too many players that are comfortable behind the ball, and that's the way they wanted to play. There wasn't anyone who can run with the ball. There wasn't, like, Hughes is a player that can pick up scraps and do things in the final third, but he wasn't ever getting there because the ball was not sticking up with our strikers at all. The only time the ball was going into the strikers was from sort of long balls from sort of Chambers and Wilson sort of trying to hit their chest and try and play from there. And it's just a case of we were just trying to play for a set piece, really. And then when you do get a set piece, you've got like Cole Skews, who isn't a natural set piece taker, taking them. And it's like, what are we trying to do here? And I don't think anyone could tell you.
Craig, is Joe right about the first half? You got anything to add on? As I was watching on WhatsApp, all your guys' comments are getting more and more turgid as it went on.
Well, what was noticeable in the first half was just sheer amount of touches that James Wilson had as the central defender, the central of the three defenders. Everything was going to. The Wolfenden was passing it to him, Chambers was passing it to him, the centre midfielders were passing it to him. He must have had more touches that first half than anyone else on the pitch, which isn't what you really want. As long as, yes, if you've got Glenn Hoddle playing there for Swindon like he did against us all those years ago, pinging it here, there and everywhere, maybe. But as I say, it was just walking pace. There was no, as Joe says, there was nobody running with the ball with intent up the pitch, and we didn't have anybody on the pitch that does it. As you say, nobody has that in their repertoire, so we can't really expect them to do it. It was just a strange setup and a very turgid walking pace first half.
And just quickly, one of the things I mentioned after the Accrington game was that Lambert on the sideline in that Accrington game was like a jack in the box, flying all over the place, keeping the standards up, really pushing everyone on. And I'd forgotten that's what he was like when he first came in. Those first few games, you saw him on the sideline, you're like, bloody hell, this guy's kicking every ball. And you could tell the players were reacting to it and he was pulling them on. And he did that Accrington game and I thought, oh, bloody hell, this is what he used to be like. And it's like, he stopped doing that already now. And it's like, why hasn't he got the motivation to be... Because we were playing better when he's on the sideline, kicking every ball, telling everyone, running around, pushing them. And it's like, why doesn't he do that every game? I don't get it.
Seb, take us into the second half. Firstly, what could have been done with the resources, or with the shape, or the philosophy generally, and how did it actually start playing out in the second half?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing to do would have been to pull off one of the three midfielders, probably Scouse, and put a more progressive player. And I wanted to see Dizelle come on and be that sort of that link to the front two. He's good with the ball at his feet. You know, he can pick a pass out. I think the game was screaming in for him or Nolan. Nolan tired noticeably on Saturday against Sunderland, but I guess he still provides a bit of a box to box, a bit of a midfielder breaking from deep. But it just started exactly the same as the first half did, with lumps, with balls lumped forward to the strikers. It wasn't sticking with them at all, and no one was really sort of wanting to put a foot on the ball and say, right, I'm going to take charge of this now and I'm going to make something happen. It just carried on exactly how it had been in the first half.
Keane for Norwood on 70, Sears for Earl, which you loved, Joe, on on 81. Any possible argument that they could have gone on to win after either the subs, Joe?
I thought Keane actually made a difference. When he came on, you actually thought, oh, this is what happened. Somebody was dropping in between the striker and midfielder, getting on the ball, and he got the ball and sprayed out wide to the right back, who got on and put a decent cross in. He had a good chance. We had one good chance and one half chance, and unfortunately he took the half chance much better than the good chance. But he actually came on, dropped in, and made things happen a bit. But what minute was that, Tub? The 70th minute?
70 was Keane for Norwich.
The game had drifted away by us by then, and had you given him 10 minutes longer, he may have made something happen, because he was, like I say, getting in the gaps between the team and taking the ball on in tough areas and actually opening the game up.
Then, as Seb says, there's no reason at all why Norwood had to come off for Keane.
No.
Why couldn't you have taken Wilson off for Keane? You've already got 5 defenders on the pitch. Take one of them off, or Scouse, or use
Wilson off and drop Scouse back to sit in the back three.
Yeah,
they were
offering
back four. Absolutely nothing at all.
No.
They had no ambition to win the game, and we couldn't have made it much easier for them.
If you think at the end of that game, we had Dizelle, Judge, and Nolan all sitting on the bench, having not come on the pitch, when we were desperate to get some sort of opening or have somebody on the pitch that could have done something. As Joe says, Keane did drop well. He dropped well into that gap, but he left Jackson up front by himself.
The stats say, I won't labour this, but Town on top for shots, possession, pass completion, dribbles, aerials, tackles, and corners. So, Seb, if Norwood puts in that one that he smashes against the bar, does this look a lot like one of those games from earlier in the season where we're keeping a clean sheet, we're winning away without necessarily blowing anyone away?
Yeah, it would have been like the MK Dons game or the Gillingham game. That goal would have made all the difference, because I don't really think that Wimbledon threatened at all. They had that chance towards the end where Chambers put a good block in, but if we had scored, I think we would have seen the game out okay. But unlike the start of the season, we're just not taking our chances at the minute. You've got no real faith in whenever we go through and someone has a shot, you're starting to think to yourself, I'm not backing this person to score at the moment, given what they're currently going through. And if you don't take your chances, you're not going to score goals. Cliche alert. So unfortunately, it's a sign of the strikers and the midfield setup just not being progressive enough.
The strikers are living on scraps, though, aren't they? I know Norwood had a couple of good chances last night. But we don't create anything in open play. Like I say, the chances last night, a Scouse corner which drops to Norwood. He hits it, does well. The ball 6 inches low. It's a great goal. The one-on-one he misses, he's the one that nicks the ball from a defender, takes a touch and tries to score.
We said that about Norwood all along, Joe. He can make chances for himself,
which is why you keep him on the pitch.
And then and then people saying, we did have a couple of chances where Jackson got in behind. But it's like, one pass into Jackson and a cross. That's not a chance, is it? That's you've started to create a chance. You haven't created a chance at that point, and it's just like nothing is happening in open play. Like you say, we've got Dizelle. Judge hasn't been very good this season, but he's still someone that tries to create something. He takes the ball in tough areas and tries to do things. But Dizelle sat on the bench for 5 games, and we've scored 2 goals, 1 a penalty when we're 4-0 down.
But it was similar on Saturday. Norwood was the one making chances. He had the one-on-one, when he's through it against the keeper. That's why it was even more strange again last night that he's the one that gets hooked early. You would think when a striker's in, a bit of a confidence lull, just keep playing him, because eventually if he gets in those right positions, he will take one of those chances. That's why I was surprised to see him taken off ahead of Jackson or ahead of one of the midfielders.
He's streaky, isn't he? And he's going to go on runs where he scores goals, and he's going to go on runs where he misses chances. But throughout the season, if you look at the shot data and things like that, he's the player that has the most shots, and we just don't have as many shots when he doesn't play. And a lot of that is stuff he creates on his own.
Yeah.
He's willing to pull the trigger when other people may look for a pass. Like Jackson got away in the first half, and rather than shoot, tries to play in downs and an impossible ball. Norwood would have shot then, and he might not have scored, but like Peterborough in the
corner saying.
Yeah, Peterborough EFL Trophy. Norwood maybe should have passed, but he shoots, keeper saves it. El Mazzuni follows him for the rebound. It makes things happen, but we just do not.
It's the same. It's the same as the Peterborough home game a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? He won the penalty, chasing a complete lost cause, nudges the defender out of the way, he gets himself a penalty, scores himself a goal. You know, he does miss a lot, but as you say, he gets in the positions. Just keep him on the pitch and see what he can do. It's just ridiculous taking him off.
Craig, can you just sort of contrast, because it's a bit of a different emotion than I know it's been a bad run of 3 games, but there was a bit of a sense, okay, we come up against Rotherham, they're well practiced, they're in good form, they're frankly better than us at the moment. Same with Peterborough as well. Is there a bit of a sense with this one? How does it stack up? Because from what I'm getting from you 3 guys, you think this one's on Lambert, and this is a very different type of disappointment than, you know, being taken apart by Smodic and Dembele and Tony.
Yeah, I think so. I had this conversation with my mate Glenn on the way back from Sunderland, and he's of the opinion that a lot of this season the players have let Lambert down. You know, how often has Judge turned up? How often has Nolan turned up? How often, you know, Hughes hasn't been fit, but when he has turned up, how many of these what we think are top quality players have actually turned up in matches and won matches for us? Not many of them, not any of them. Last night, those players weren't really on. Let's say, as we said before, the players that were on the pitch pretty much played the roles you would expect them to play on the pitch. You know, we're still playing wing backs when we're playing our third choice wing backs now. If you think Vincent Young and Garbutt first,
you can argue that they're both centre halves as well, can't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, in Lambert's own admission, Donasian's a centre half by all accounts.
But even if they're not a centre half, they're full backs, not wing backs anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're not wing backs, and we're set up to play wing backs, and we're playing third choice wing backs at wing back, and 3, arguably 2.5 flat central midfielders in central midfield. What can you expect from that team? There's nobody with. It wasn't set up to particularly win that game or take it to Wimbledon.
Mm-hmm. So the table says Town in 7th now, 1 point off the playoffs, and no congestion now, as they've now played more games, 31, than 17 of the other teams in the league. 13 to go, 4 out of the next 5 at home. I'll get off my 9 out of the next 13. 4 out of the next 5 games at home. That's where we are. That's the league. Couple of games time, they could be well back in the top 6. And I am a little bit worried about people on Twitter assuming that a game in hand equals 3 points to the team that has the game in hand, because it
especially when they're all playing each other as well.
Yeah, quite, when it's literally impossible. Yeah. Right, let's dive in with some questions. I apologise for the tone of this podcast, but we reflect the performances on the pitch, sadly. But and these are the honest questions from our followers. This is from Martin, and I'll indulge myself because I saw Martin at a gig I was working in Marlow, and I promised I'd read out his question after he said hello to me. He says, diddly doo-dah, I've lost my quote. Biggest issue not going straight up this season is potential to lose our best players, but are we going to lose Wolfenden and Downs anyway? So are we better to stay and properly rebuild to try and get a solid base? I think what he's arguing, Seb, is, well, even if you go up, they may well be sold anyway. So what's your view on that kind of look at it?
Yeah, more than likely, I expect them both to go in the summer, regardless of what league we're in. But the difference being, if we are a championship side and we've got an extra £9 million behind us, you've got a bit more sort of oomph in the market, and you can negotiate a bit more with teams. The worry is we stay down, they get sold for a combined 1.2 million or something awful, and that's just, there's no chance Lambert's going to see that money. If we go up and can sell them and then reinvest a little bit, the one time Lambert spent money, he's done okay. I think we'd all agree that Vincent Young is a decent buy, so he's clearly got a bit of an eye for a player, but the worry is if we sell him for a pittance as a League One side, that money's never going to get reinvested, and we've just lost two of our best assets.
Joe, Gareth asks, everyone is moaning at Lambert, but are some of the players just not as good as we think? And can I dovetail onto that? George and Ali, who are excellent on the Not the Top 20 podcast, talking about Ipswich, outside observers saying it's a mid-table team in League One anyway. What's your view on the actual level of some of these players?
Well, I think the squad is one of the strongest in the league still. Every time you look at it, I just struggle to see past that. And there's just, like, you look at, for example, Jordan Roberts. He could not get close to our bench effectively. He's gone to Gillingham. He started 5 games in a row for him. Gillingham are now, 3 places behind us in the league. And it's like, so a player that can't get near our team is their main striker now. So you look through the spine of the team. Holy was sort of a good keeper for Gillingham last year. He's moved up. Norris, not a massive fan, but he's still a decent keeper at this level. Chambers, Goose, they've played 300, 400 games in the league above. You look at every team we play, they have like a Mark Beavers or a Richard Wood or a Jason Shackle. All these people that have just played loads and loads of championship games. I've never been a huge Goose fan, but he's good enough at this level. Wolfenden is playing well generally. Downs is sort of probably one of the best players in the league. Totally. Jackson, from what I hear, had interest from championship clubs, including Blackburn in the window. Norwood, he's had his critics, but he's still scored a decent amount of goals. Keane on his day is one of the best players. Like, this is not a poor squad of players, but we're not getting anything out of them at the moment. And yeah, the players are letting Lambert down to an extent, but I think Lambert's letting the players down by that ridiculous rotation system, which totally knocked us for so long, setting up the teams to not win games. And ultimately, if one or the other's going to go, you can't sack your whole squad. So I don't know. I don't think any other manager would be doing as badly as Lambert's doing with his squad at the moment. 22 points in 20 games is ridiculous, really, isn't it? And I say we may be overrating the squad, but I think when everyone saw the squad at the end of August, I think it put Lambert in no excuses territory for me, and he just hasn't been able to settle on anything. We're now playing 3-5-2. We started off the season with 3 fit centre backs for the first 2 months of the season. We played 4-4-2 with 2 strikers, with no strike on the bench basically for the first 3 months of the season. He obviously did not recruit to play 3-5-2. He stumbled across it. It worked well for a bit, but now it's been found out because James Wilson, he's a decent defender, but when we are games where we've got to try and play with the ball, he isn't good enough on the ball. In the 91st minute, we've still got a chance to build one last attack, and he shanks the ball out of the stadium. I don't know. He's a League One, League Two backup, and now he's having to play every week.
As a libero.
Craig, Stevie asks, is there a problem with motivation with the players? Body language, no leader. I like Lambert, but I'm wavering. What on earth does he do, as we never seem very up for the fight? I think that parlays into what Joe was saying about those technical box kind of, I don't want to say histrionics, but the technical box pantomime that we all quite liked when he first came.
Yeah. No, one of the things I was thinking about last night, because we were very close to the dugouts. There is that, but there's also I'm wondering, what does Stuart Taylor do in this whole operation? He
argue with the fourth
shouts
official.
a lot.
Yeah, exactly. He shouts at the fourth. He's forever in the fourth official's ear. He doesn't seem to add anything other than when we do win a match, he gets all the players to hold hands and swing them up and down a bit. Lambert seems to be a little bit lost to me on the touch lines. Yeah, but nothing's happening. There's no real in-game management. There's no real changes being made, tinkering during the course of well, certainly more recently during the course of matches. Quite why who thought Freddie Sears could play in whatever position he played in last night when he came on, I don't know. But yeah, so the Stuart Taylor thing is a bit of a strange one for me. I don't think he adds too much, to be fair. And then we talk about motivation, but again, it comes from the same old subject we talk about time and time again. It's just leaders, isn't it? Leaders on the pitch, dragging people along with you, raising the standard of the play that's going on during the course of the match. There's nobody vocal enough on that pitch, is there? None of them. I'll include Chambers in that as well.
Seb, David asks.
Sorry, just on that one though, with regards to dragging people along though, Downs' performance last night should have dragged people along with him, but it doesn't because no one's willing to be dragged along with him. That first half, he was absolutely everywhere. If that doesn't drag you along, then what will?
Well said, well said. Seb, David asks, as a club, are we more of a car crash than Sunderland at the moment? This is Sunderland who are about to have their second different owner of the season when Donald actually goes and have had 2 relegations. But hey, we're in the same place. If Netflix were to make a documentary about us, what would they call it?
I mean, the parallels with Sunderland are frightening. If you've seen that documentary, you could just replace it with Portman Road and Marcus Evans, and it's basically an identical sketch. To call it, I guess it would probably be careful what you wish for, given the some of the media comments.
Kev, Joe, asks, we got most of our points, Dave will like this one, playing 4-4-2. He doesn't say 4-4-F in 2, but I'm going to say 4-4-F in 2. It's not pretty, but other formations are not effective for us. 4-4-2 for you, Joe?
I'm not a massive fan of 4-4-2, but it was working for us. But I think it was, as soon as Downs missed a game, I think it really found out Scouse in the middle of a 2 there. I think Downs was really carrying us at the start of the season. But we spent the last few months of last season, from when Lambert came in, playing a variation of 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it. We spent all last season effectively playing that. We've come to this season and we've barely played it once this season, other than when it's like a 4-5-1 rather than a 4-3-3. And the squad is set up to play that way. And I don't understand why we have gone away from what Lambert thought was the way. When he first came in and we were splitting the centre-backs and Roberts was dropping in and flicking the ball on to Sears coming in from the flanks. And I know we've missed some personnel at times this year, but like, what does Lambert want from us? I don't know what he's doing.
We can't play 4-4-2. We haven't got the wide players to play 4-4-2 of it. Who would you put wide left and wide right in a
Well, I guess you've got Edwards back now, isn't he? So
Edwards and Garbutt.
Right.
Kenlock left back, I don't know. Earl left back. Well.
Joe's losing the plot, ladies and gentlemen. Right, last one, Craig. Jonathan Smith. Try and string this answer out because you can give a one-word answer here. But is there any evidence of a long-term plan? And I think, just to go into what Joe said as well, we see some clubs brilliantly. I mean, even Peterborough will recruit to a plan of, we're going to buy strikers and try and create chances for strikers. Even recruitment to a plan. Apparently there is one. Craig, is there any evidence of it that you're seeing?
You did want a short answer, yeah. But there's not. There's not, is there? There's not. We're not seeing a long-term plan. We're not seeing a long-term style. We're not seeing any formation on a consistent basis. There was a question a little while ago about, obviously, would we be not better off staying down and building? But well, possibly. But what are we building towards? There is no Luton formation that we're planning. There is no Sheffield United there isn't anything. We're chopping and changing it. As Joe said, we chopped and changed from last year when it seemed to be sort of working. We're looking to recruit Connor Wickham in the January transfer window, albeit on loan. Where's that come from? As you say yourself, Ben, you say about teams planning for future transfer windows. Well, is anyone seeing any evidence of that at the moment? How many transfer windows Lambert had now? 3. He said himself, didn't he? He wanted 3. Judge me on 3 transfer windows, etc., etc. Well, okay, let's start judging him. That's obviously the reasons behind this 5-year deal, isn't it? It's and the sort of underlying comments that we're hearing here and there about, we might not, things might not play out as we want them to, etc., etc. We may not go up this year. for example. Well, if we're not going to go up this year, then let's see some sort of coherent plan as to what the hell we can expect next year, other than selling arguably our two best players and replacing them with far inferior players.
And I know I've made this comment many times, going back to what Joe said about the 4-3-3, how much worse off would you be if you just stuck with it and tried to really, really develop and, dare I say, even recruit it to it? Although the recruitment, as you said, Joe, would have worked perfectly with the 4-3-3. The new keeper, well, fine. A fullback that can get forward, fine. And central focal point striker all would have worked. There we go. Right, guys, I'm going to lighten the atmosphere because I'm going to surprise you now. I've got two little ducks, but because there's three of you, we'll do Joe's style and I will let you make bids. Okay? So we'll see. We'll only do the Ipswich team because the opponents are obscure. So you can make bids of how many of the Ipswich team you can name from this game. And we're talking about Wimbledon. And I'm looking at Craig's TXU energy shirt. One of my favourite comedy Ipswich games, which just went crazy, was Ipswich 1, Wimbledon 5 on the last day. It was the last home game, rather, of the 2002-3 season. So this is George Burley starts the season and Joe Royle takes over. Administration has bitten, but there's still a few star players left around that haven't been sold. So, Joe Fairs, how many of the Ipswich first 11, and remember, I'll give you a gimme if you pick someone on the bench, and I'm going to quickly tell you that Tommy Miller was injured, okay, just to try and help out, because someone's going to say Tommy Miller, and I just don't want that sadness and upset in such a downbeat pod. Anyway, Joe, how many of that 11 do you think you can name?
5.
5? Craig, can you match 5, do you think?
Oh, Craig, I'm just trying to... Yeah, I'll go. I'll go. I'm writing them down as I'm thinking about them. I'll go 5.5.
5.5. Seb, do you think you can beat 5.5?
I'll have to go 6, won't I then?
You go 6. I tell you what, we'll go around in a bit of a circle then, and see if we can do it together. Right, Seb, you go first.
Andy Marshall.
Andy Marshall. Joe?
Matt Holland.
Matt Holland. Last home game, indeed. That's 2. Craig?
Jim Majorton.
Yes. 3.
Fabian Wilness.
Fabian Wilness is 4. It's quite tense, isn't it?
Richard Naylor.
Oh, no Richard Naylor in there. I'd say we'll keep the other 2 in then. Craig?
Darren Bent.
Darren Bent is a substitute, so I'm going to let you away. You're still in, but we're still on 4. Seb?
Chris Makin.
Chris Makin, good shout. 5. Joe, do you want to come back in?
No, I'll probably just go out again, wouldn't I? Let me think.
Which would be tremendous.
Thomas Gardso.
Yes, Thomas Gardso is 6. Craig?
So Joe Royle. Okay. Matt Richards.
Matt Richards, excellent. Is 7.
Seb? Oh, pressure. Marcus Bent.
Marcus Bent, excellent. 8. So 3 left. Joe, we have 2 forwards and an attacking midfielder. Comes before Premiership.
Martin Royster.
Craig? Big arse, Dave loves him.
Pablo Cunyago.
I didn't realise how that came out, but there you go. Pablo Cunyago. Oh, God, no, someone said Marcus Bent, didn't they? Oh, okay. So, Seb, Marmite central midfielder.
Jermaine Wright.
Jermaine Wright. Well done, gentlemen.
How did that size loot 5-1 to Wimbledon when you list those names? Jesus.
Because
I remember I had a Derby away ticket and I thought I bought it before the game for the last game thinking, we've got an outside chance here. And I thought, I wish I hadn't just spunked that money away on that Derby away ticket.
I remember them having David Connolly and Neil Shipley up front who played the width of the penalty box and finished absolutely. I think Shipley was rather rotund at this point as well, but
that explains your 5 goals.
Knew where the goal was. Right,
let's. The same Neil Shipley who was recently caught wanking in a car.
Oh, What are you doing? What?
Allegedly.
No, it's proven,
No, he's
wasn't
been
it?
done for it.
Oh, right, okay.
Joe could say what he likes.
What? What?
Stand down, lawyers. Stand down.
Tell me more, Joe.
He was caught, wanking in a car park in front of a mum and her daughter, wasn't it?
Oh no.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I would.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
I would have mentioned him still if I had have known. But there we go. Right. How do I get from public acts of indecency to Burton Albion at home this weekend? Like that, we'll do. Seb, Burton are in 12, 6 points behind Town. No wins and only 4 points in the last 5 games. 4 draws and a defeat. But never mind, Burton. Seb, what do you want to see from Paul Lambert on Saturday?
Much as he's been criticised for much as he's been criticised for changing things, I'd like to see a back four. We've got to start winning games now. With all these home games, I don't think we need to be lining up with so many defensive midfielders. So if we assume that Garbett is back, I'd like to see Garbett start like he was in the at the start of the season, where he had someone in behind him so he can get forward more with his delivery. So I'd like to see a back four. I'd like to see sort of a 4-3-3 with probably Keane as the focal point and the runners going in behind him. But crucially, I don't want to see 3 central midfielders lined up with absolutely no progressive tactics at all.
Joe, change of system?
I think if we're going to stick with 3 at the back, I'd rather see a back 3 of Earl on the left, Chambers in the middle, Wolfenden on the right, because Chambers is getting up and down and he's trying to do that. But I think Wolfenden is sort of becoming a lot more impotent on that left-hand side, and he's just not affecting the game as we know he can do. Stick him on the right-hand side, and I think we'll get more out of him. So if we're going to stick to 3.
He was last night he was noticeably always cutting in on his right foot, poor sod. You could tell the ball was coming out to him, and he was so limited in what he could do because he had Josh Earl outside him, and so he didn't really have the confidence to pass to him. But he was always forever cutting back into the the busy part of the pitch. Sorry to interrupt.
And I'd rather not see the same midfield 3. I think Downs, Hughes, and stick someone in front of him, even if it's Dazelle. I know it's not his normal game, but Dazelle, Dobra, someone that's going to try and make something happen, because Burton are not going to come here and take the game to us. We need to break them down.
Craig,
I was just saying we don't need to be playing Skews, do we? Skews doesn't need to be starting matches for us. We've got Hughes, Downs, Dazelle, Nolan, Judge. If you can't pick a 3 out of that 5, then without Skews being in it, we've got no reason to be playing him.
The only reason I'd say to play Skews would be if you're going to sort of sit him in the middle of a back 3 or push him on into sort of the base of a diamond. But when you've got 3 centre backs, you do not need Cole Skews sitting in front of them.
Craig, if he's wedded to 3 at the back, is there any chance of a Nuno Santo 3-4-3? If you're not going to use a number 10 and you're cluttering up the central midfield, can you play 3 centre backs and have all of Norwood, Keane and Jackson on? I think we did see the 3 of them together, not very successfully.
Yeah, we did.
Can't remember, it was a home game, wasn't it?
Bristol Rovers.
Bristol Rovers.
Yeah, and to be fair, and we were talking about Bristol Rovers. We were talking about having 1 or 2 touches maximum. The goal we scored against Bristol Rovers was a perfect example of what we have done on one occasion recently. It was Downs, wasn't it? Downs to Garbett to Jackson, who crossed it in first time to Norwood at the back post. That was all one-touch football. But that did that as a formation. Sorry, as a 3 up front. I don't think that worked particularly well, was it? And I think Norwood's kind of isolated a little bit wide on occasion, unless they're going to play it with Keane as the number 10 in that hole and allow the front 2 to do their thing. That could possibly work. But again, as a flat front 3, then probably not. And if Keane does drop deep, then the front 2 have got to get a lot closer to each other, because they just kept very wide, I think, in that Bristol Rovers match when he did do that.
Seb, I think the takeaway from this conversation is at this point in the season we would have hoped to have been saying, oh, so-and-so's tired, maybe so-and-so comes in for them, and that would be it, yeah?
Yeah. We at this stage we want a settled formation that we've been playing for the last 6 months, and everyone just if a player drops out, someone knows exactly what the role is, comes in and slots in effortlessly. But it's not been the case, has it?
There we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully that wasn't too harrowing.
Just quickly, Ben. So
Go
I
ahead,
posed
Joshua.
a question. I posed a question on the TWTD message board earlier with regards to Lambert on there.
That's
Not sort of
dangerous.
not a Lambert in, Lambert out thing, but can anyone see the point in Paul Lambert staying here at the moment? He's managed us for 73 games. We're no further forward to what we were. If you think the manager is the problem, then the simple answer is you want to change the manager. If you think the players are the problem and the squad needs an overhaul, is Paul Lambert the manager you want to give that squad an overhaul in the summer? Has he earned the right to do that after 3 transfer windows? And I know now people are starting to blame Marcus Evans again, and I read a good post on there earlier today was saying you can blame Marcus Evans for us not competing in the Championship, but you can't blame Marcus Evans for us not competing in League One. So what are your thoughts on Lambert? Do you think a new manager bounce and Neil Warnock coming in to try and push us over the line would be a better bet, or Nathan Jones coming in, or I don't know. I'll pass it over to you three.
Well, I guess the what you'd hope would happen is somebody gets 15, 14 games now to really try and build something going into next season. Do basically what Lambert should have done last season when he had his free hit. I think if Warnock came in, all the old mixed stuff would start coming out the woodwork because he would simply launch it every opportunity. Ben will know better than us with his Championship stuff with regards to Nathan Jones and Warnock, but I wouldn't be adverse to seeing Nathan Jones, but I'm not sure that the bounce would be enough to get us across the line.
I just want to know why Lambert's lost his bottle. You know, he came in all guns blazing, didn't he? As Joe said, I went to that Reading away match, his first away match.
I loved the first half of that game. It was great.
It was ridiculous, wasn't it? It was Cole Skews was like Andre Pirlo there. He was pinging it everywhere. He was picking it up in the D on the edge of our box. But he's just, and as Joe says about, he's bouncing around the technical area. That's not there anymore. I say for some reason he's completely lost his bottle about us playing this rock and roll football, taking it to the opposition. There's nothing like that.
Has he become comfortable? 5-year contract. Some of the noises coming out of the club saying stuff like, we are almost prepared not to go back up this season. Has that lifted some pressure? And then he's been handed a 5-year deal, so maybe he's become a bit complacent.
But it was in the Accrington game after the 5-year contract where he was back to how he was on the touchline. It's like, maybe this has got him going again, but he doesn't seem motivated. And I know we probably don't remember it as well as obviously the Norwich fans do, but when he was a Norwich manager, it felt like if there was half an hour left in the game and they were drawing, you're going to chuck 4 strikers on and try and win the game. Now we just
they invariably did.
And we're making subs, like even yesterday, 70th minute, it did not take 70 minutes to realise that something wasn't right yesterday. And all it was a like-for-like change. We wait until the 83rd minute in home games to try to make changes. And I know he's lost his mojo. He's lost the ability to try and win games. And I know I don't see the point in persisting with him.
I said he looked lost yesterday on the touchline. I say he gets no help or assistant from his assistant to the manager.
That Norwich side, sorry, just jump in. That Norwich side, I remember scored so many late goals. They must have been really going for it up until the last minute. We end our games with, players sort of run out of steam. He doesn't really make substitutions till really, really late in the game. And our games sort of peter out with a whimper. There's something very wrong compared to how he was.
For my 2 penneth, not to pour water on the conversation, but he's not going anywhere, is it? For a start, he's staying, and it goes back to conversations we had 9 months ago about pattern of play, and I know I was like a broken record about it. And what you would get with a Nathan Jones or a Neil Warnock is you definitely get a philosophy, you definitely get a pattern of play. And one thing I do want to say is, yes, Seb, you're right. All the mixed stuff will come up if a name like Warnock or whoever, or a direct style manager is needed. But it's an apples to oranges comparison now. What we needed when Mick went is now totally different than what we need now. So yes, you're gonna get those arguments, but we're in a rather different position than 17 years in the Championship and just gone a little bit stale. We're now need to get the hell out of League One as quickly as possible and up that TV money again if you're Marcus Evans.
But it's not a 5-year plan just to give a manager a 5-year contract. That's not a plan.
No, absolutely not.
Where it feels like just by giving him a contract, we feel that's a plan. But I know. I don't know. I've really lost. I didn't have a huge amount of faith in him
Well, Joe,
over
what will
the
it
recent
take?
weeks, and I've really lost.
Joe, what will it take for you to get faith back in Lambert just in the short term over 3 or 4 games?
Well, I was starting to with a 3-5-2, where it looked like, yeah, that probably wouldn't have been what I'd have done to progress, but he seemed to be setting up the team to try and win games. And I don't know, just him. I know it sounds stupid and like sort of the sort of thing that someone who doesn't go to football would say, but sort of like just the manager looking like he cares on the touchline. And I know people used to moan about Mick, but we have played better when he has been up there pushing the players on, and he's not.
Well, and Craig said about in-game
he's not
stuff
a
as well.
cheerleader. He's pushing people on. He's telling them when to press and things. We've got no pressing pattern. We've got no pattern of play. We've got, like I say, our play is just teams sit behind us. We pass the ball around and we chop it around. And there are some nice phases of play, but we aren't.
It's all in the middle third, though, isn't it? Middle and last thirds.
We aren't creating any chances. We aren't close to it. We haven't got a striker who's misfiring. Like Norwood is misfiring. He's creating most of the chances himself. We aren't. Like I say, we're coming out of a game. Yeah, we had 15 shots yesterday, but how many of those were decent chances? XG is low every game. We aren't. When was the last time we battered like a team we expect to, like Accrington at home, but 22 points in 20 games? That's half a season. And while we probably are slightly underperforming with regards to how the games are actually playing out, I think we've been a little bit unlucky in certain games. There's too many games where we just are not getting anywhere, and like I'd need to see. Well, I'd need to see some wins against decent sides, and we haven't really got any decent sides left to play.
Pompey.
Yeah, and I like the players. You look, Pompey are flying. I know they lost last night, but they're on a club record before that. Sunderland are winning every week. Rotherham are gone. Coventry are playing well and winning, and it's like
and not losing as well.
That's 4 places. That's 4 teams who've got more points than us, that have got games in hands on us. Like, we're fighting with Wickham, Oxford.
We're fighting for the 6th place, aren't we?
Yeah, and from where we were that is poor.
And again, you talk about Wickham and Oxford, and I can tell you what Wickham's pattern of play is, and I can tell you what Oxford's is as well. And Wickham might stitch themselves up with age of squad and people getting knackered, and Oxford have just, I saw Oxford's 2 best players play 3 minutes for Brentford last night, so that might stitch them up. But
when we played Wickham on New Year's Day, we sort of said, they look like they're on a poor run of form. They've lost 3 or 4 in a row. We look now like we're going to push on, but they've had their bad run, and then
they don't go away, do they?
They're back. Well,
everyone's waiting for them, aren't they? Everyone's waiting for them to drop.
And I think, I don't know, I would not be backing us to finish in the top 6. I know we've got an easy run of games at home, but I think a couple of poor performances in the next week, and that home crowd is going to be more of a burden than a.
If we don't win against Burton, it could get very nasty, couldn't it?
4 home games in 5, 9 home games in 13. There we go. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, nice little addendum on the end there, Joe. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for listening. As always, when we have these down in the doldrums moments, we don't set the tone. We read the questions. We try and fill the mood as it is. So please don't tweet us and say we're all manic depressives. We just telling the mood as it is, and I'm sure if you wind back to 9 wins and a draw, we were very happy and very, very upbeat at the same time. You can follow on Twitter at Blue Monday ITFC, and we're doing a lot of work on the Instagram, which is Blue Monday Pod. Obviously, subscribe, listen, and remember, I still get comments on my YouTube channel asking where the podcasts are. We've moved over on YouTube. Just type Blue Monday Podcast in, and you can see our lovely faces. Seb, have you got anything to add to this?
No, here's to Saturday. Let's hope for a good performance and hopefully give a bit of confidence to the players and the team, and hopefully next week's pod will be a bit more upbeat. Keep the faith, eh?
Craig?
Let's just hope there's another blip coming, and it's 4 home wins at the next 5.
Joe Fairs?
I'm just too sad to say anything more.
Hit the bad situation. Right, bye everybody. See you on Saturday. First of 4 home games in 5. Let the good times roll.